Give it 1 second. All right, I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for November 7th to order at 7 o'clock. And may I have a motion to, Pledge Allegiance. Please join me in the Pledge Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. May I have a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss litigation? Marcy moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Okay. Can I have a motion to go back into regular session? Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. All right. Okay, next item on the agenda is the first Selectmen's report, and it is, I think it's very interesting. It is a little long because we've had other meetings where the report was wouldn't fit in. So here we go. Darien Health Department reports that during the week of October 25th through the 31st, there were 7 COVID cases reported. Tomorrow is the health department's last day for the flu vaccine. It's being held in room 119. You don't need an appointment, and the hours are 3 to 7. So right before you vote or right after you vote, you can come get your flu shot. Connecticut Public Utilities Regulatory Authority, or PURA, has completed its 3 scheduled public comment hearings regarding proposed rate increases by Aquarian Water Company. On behalf of our community, I submitted a letter of opposition to PURA, and that letter may be found on our website in our newsletter, which is posted to the website. So if you haven't received the newsletter yet, you can find it on the website. Thanks to all of the hard work of the Advisory Committee on Sustainability, I am pleased to announce that Darien has been awarded the silver level of certification from Sustainable CT. In 2019, Darien earned a bronze level, and now after completing a lengthy application process that involved numerous action items, the silver level for this current cycle was achieved. And the committee's noteworthy achievement will be recognized in West Hartford on November 14th. Atria's, Darien's 25th anniversary celebration took place last week, and it was a pleasure to participate in the event. Our seniors have long been at the heart of our community, and I appreciate Atria's role in helping them remain part of Darien. I was honored to participate in the Darien Sports Shops fashion show in support of Mental Health Task Force last week. The task force has been meeting regularly, and the $2,750 that was raised at that event, which was sponsored by the Sports Shop, Sipsters, and Palmer's, will go towards the town-wide mental health needs assessment. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention sponsored Out of the Darkness walks around the country on October 16th. I joined fellow walkers in Westport in support of the Darien Wave Strong team. The Connecticut Council of Municipalities, CCM, conference met last week, and one action item was to vote on concepts to present to the General Assembly in January. The transit-oriented development bill that was brought forth last year was again discussed heavily. I'm happy to report that several other First Selectmen and town administrators joined me in vocalizing our strong opposition in general, and specifically voted for an opt-out option should it go forward. And I encourage residents and relevant boards and commissions to continue monitoring and speaking out on these types of zoning initiatives that seek to remove local control as they are presented in the coming months. On Friday, November 4th, I met the new CEO of Stanford Hospital, Kathy Sillart, and received a tour of the hospital. Stanford Health will sponsor an informational session on Darien health and wellness data at the Darien Library this coming Thursday at 10 a.m. Presenters will include Kathy Sillard, the Senior VP, Ben Wade, and Allie Ramstock from our Human Services Department. The presentation will focus on behavioral health and access to care, including common problems seniors face with Medicare. I was happy to meet with the Darien Cub Scouts Pack 55 and 56 at the Scout Cabin yesterday to discuss the election process and the role of the first selectman in Darien. To reinforce the election process, they voted on their most popular candy bar. Anybody want to guess what it was? It's 2 words. Kit Kat. Good job. Kit Kat. You're the winner, John. The HHR committee is speaking with candidates interested in serving on the committee and will present candidates to the Board of Selectmen as soon as possible. Veterans Day is this Friday, November 11th. A brief ceremony will be held in front of Town Hall to honor the brave men and women of our armed services. The ceremony is organized by the Monuments and Ceremonies Commission, and it will begin at 11 a.m. The last day of retail service at the Darien Post Office at 30 Corbin is this Thursday, November 10th. The downtown post office will temporarily relocate over at Norotan Heights at that post office, which is underneath Palmer's. Beginning in November, on November 11th actually, the hours of operations Monday through Friday will be 8:30 to 5, and on Saturdays 9:30 to 12:30. You can find additional information on the post office on our website, including if they change their holiday hours. The Darien Post Office is expected to return to the community in early 2023 at a permanent location of their own. The town of Darien has been awarded by the Government Finance Officers Association the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year that ended June 30th, 2021. The report has been judged by an impartial panel to meet the high standards of the program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and motivate potential users and user groups to read the report. This is the 31st year the town has received this significant award. Thank you. TV 79 recently conducted an interview with the Director of Human Services, Allie Ramstock. During the interview, Allie explained the work her department does and the services it provides. An appreciative TV 79 viewer sent a $1,000 donation to the department to use wherever it was needed most. This generous gift is very much appreciated. And fairly soon, the Human Services Department will be looking for donations to support families in need during the holidays. So you'll be hearing more about that. Tomorrow is Election Day, and I look forward to seeing all of our residents at the polls as we come together to vote for individuals we believe will fulfill our visions for the future. That is the end of my first Selectman report. Kate, do you want to update us?
All of that. I just want to echo the congratulations to Jen on winning the award from the GFOA. It does take a lot of work. I know because I used to do it. And included in your packets tonight was an update on the ARPA funds, where we stand with spending them, planning for different projects. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me, and if I don't have them, I'll get them for you from the department heads.
Any comments on that? Okay. Next item is board liaison report. So we'll start with Mike.
Blade Review will be meeting on Wednesday, so we'll have a report on our next meeting.
Sarah?
The HHR committee, who is here this evening, has been working on an increase in appropriation, which you will hear tonight. And we've been busy. We've been meeting almost every week. And the Thriving Youth Task Force will meet again later this month. They are working on a youth summit for the youth in Darien. So far they have about 20 students that have signed up, and they have another 10 that are waiting to be confirmed. And so far it's split between young men and women, and they have different organizations that they represent from all over the town, and so they're looking forward to doing it.
Is that a typical number?
They're and looking to have a max of 40 students, so they We're reaching out to students, they have students from the high school groups to sports teams to churches to the YMCA. I mean, they have groups from all over town. They have, I did attend several of the meetings. They are very concerned about making sure that we get a very good cross-section of students from all over town. So there's not just one voice.
So kids can still,
Yeah, they have been reaching out. They have folks that they're working with, many different organizations from the town, from the high school, from the churches and different youth groups. People are identifying and making sure that we have good representation.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. John?
The IT committee met on October 27th, and one of our subcommittees has produced a series of policies that did not exist before, and this is around 4 areas: acceptable use of town equipment, software procurement so that it's all coordinated and purchased in the best possible way, regular vulnerability assessments of our IT systems, and a security incident response policy. And so the purpose of all those is just to provide an anchor, if you will, for ensuring good decision-making around all of those things, whether we have a problem, an incident, we want to buy software, we're trying to tell people and remind people how they can and can't use town equipment. And so we just didn't have policies for that before, so I will have that before the Board of Selectmen at our next meeting to review and vote on. We've got a few other initiatives going on, but I'll leave it for there at this time.
So how will you work with new RTM members? Do you reach out to them on this, or?
Well, in terms of their awareness of these
Right.
policies?
Right.
Absolutely. In fact, when we review these policies, I'll make sure the RTM gets copies of them. These are more operational policies as opposed to anything else. It just provides us a way to manage things that come up with some frequency, hopefully not incidents, but certainly procurement and employee use of town equipment, that type of thing we think should be governed by a concrete policy. In fact, all town employees are going to be required to review and sign off that they understand those policies. So.
Great. Marcy?
Sure. Oxbridge Building Committee meets on Wednesday. I have no new to report on that, other than when I drop off my kids. Things are moving heavily. There's new structure being built on the second phase in the back, and it's still very busy, so I will give a full report on that next week. Mental Health Task Force has been meeting quite a few times. I'm on a couple of committees there. We met as a full committee about 2 weeks ago, and that's when we started to break into the mental health assessment. We are looking into hiring a facilitator to help us gather that information, to make sure that we hit all the right resources, so that when we're able to present it and start that assessment, we're doing it the most appropriate way. 2 activities or events that are going to be coming up in the next month is Suicide Survivors Day, which will be held on November 19th, so not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. That is going to be actually a whole Fairfield County-wide event activity. It's going to be hosted by American Foundation for the Prevention of Suicide. They do it they do it once a year in several different locations throughout the state. It's really a day that's sort of designed for survivors themselves, whether it's survivor of friendship, survivor of a parent, survivor of a sibling, survivor an aunt, spouse, very close friend, and it's an opportunity for those who've had suicide experiences to get together and have some support and to sort of celebrate their growth as they get through the journey. That is, like I said, it's on November 19th. It starts at 9 a.m. to 12. It's at Norotan Presbyterian. They were really, really generous to offer their space up and all their AV equipment, so it should be a really good day. If anyone knows anyone that has a close connection, I highly recommend they register. You do have to pre-register for that event so that we're able to have enough facilitators for each sort of group. You can go right on to the Darien Town website. There's a link, sends you to the American Foundation for Prevention of Suicide. You sign up through there. Currently we have 19 people registered, and we're still got a couple of weeks, so it should be a nice event. The next thing is QPR training, which is Questions, Persuade, and Revert. It's a training that is open to anyone in the town of Darien, and that allows, that gives you the opportunity to learn how to help assess during mental health crisis moments. That will be held on November 29th. It's at 7 p.m. and it's going to be virtual. It's about an hour and a half long, and it's open to anyone over 18 to register to do it. And I did it. It's fantastic. It's a great way to help train yourself to be a facilitator in an event of mental health crisis. So we've been busy, and we'll continue to do the good work.
Thanks for your work on that.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comment. And I see we have, it's terrific to see people in the audience. So do we need people to sign in or anything?
I don't know if anybody did.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Let's,
Kevin Cosgrove from Middlebrook.
Kevin. You're just signing in. Okay. Okay, so if we have no, Kate, do we have any emails or anything?
No, we have not.
Okay. So next item on the agenda, new business, is to discuss and take action on a request to increase the appropriation and bonding authorization for Hindley Homes and Royal. So we will vote on these separately, but Chris Price is here to explain them. And Chris is the chair of the Hindley Homes Royal Building Committee.
Working okay? Do we want to?
That's for the TV.
Okay, great. Well, hi, everybody. Good to see you all again. As Monica said, I'm Chris Price, the chair of the Hindley Homes and Royal Committee. And I'm here with Joe McCammon, who is the vice chair, David Martin, who is on the committee and the liaison with the Board of Finance, and Sarah Newman, who's on the committee and on the Board of Selectmen. We are, basically, we can give you a bit of an update on where the project is. We'll do that very, very quickly, but the point of this evening really is to present to you our reasoning behind why we want to increase the amount of the appropriation that was approved back in late May of last year. Basically, where the project is at this point is, when we were last in front of this board, we had selected an architect, we had selected a construction manager, we had a basic budget put together that we got your approval on, that we then submitted to the state Office of School Construction. And in the meantime, since that time, our design team has gone through conceptual designs and has now gone on to the schematic design phase, which our committee has approved, and that's also been approved by the Board of Education. It's been presented to the Town Architectural Review Board. It's been reviewed by the State Office of School Construction and Grants, and the project designs, the schematic designs, have been submitted to the Town Planning and Zoning Department, and there will be school-by-school hearings by P&Z later this month. Our design team has now moved on to what's called the design development phase, which will be further detail on the design. As you recall from our initial presentations in the spring, there were a couple basic goals of the Hindley Homes and Royal project. That was to eliminate the portable classrooms, to renovate or construct new libraries and learning commons, or to renovate existing ones in the case of homes, to correctly size general and special subject classrooms, and to update outdated mechanical, electrical systems, as well as the building envelopes. There were also some items that we identified back in the spring that were going to be studied. We hadn't gotten enough information on them to make hard decisions. Some of those were identified in the 2021 ed specs. For example, the possible utilization of what people used to call the Curtis property, but we now are calling 32 Hoyt, which is its street address. Possible expanding parking to meet needs of the schools, to study traffic flow at Hindley, and consider changing the bus loop, as well as possibly a curb cut for egress onto the post road. The Hindley traffic flow was part of the initial appropriation. 32 Hoyt and expansion of parking were not. Those were to be studied items. There are also some items that were going to be required by code because there's going to be new construction and thus new impervious surface. We were going to have to look at drainage at each of the three campuses, There was also, very specifically at Hindley, for example, concern about drainage off of the campus. Drainage at Hindley and Royal were also funded in the initial appropriation in the spring. And then there are some items that have come up that have just evolved as the design process has gone on. The most obvious one, and the one we're going to talk about this evening, is additional roof work at each of the 3 schools. Because there's going to be new construction, there's going to be new roofs put on the new construction, and as we'll discuss in a little bit, integrating that new roof project with, or that new roof part of the project with new roofs on the rest of the school. So the 2 things we really wanted to focus on tonight are the needs with respect to the 32 Hoyt property and the new roofs. So we'll start with 32 Hoyt. We studied that during the conceptual and schematic design process as to how best to use that parcel to expand the Holmes campus, how we could make the best use of that property. It was included in the property survey. A wetland survey was done. It was determined that there was no wetlands, there were no environmental issues on that property. And the Board of Selectmen back in mid-October approved giving the Board of Education care, custody, and control of the 32 Hoyt site. Designs for 32 Hoyt are still being finalized. There's a lot of refinement going on, but a big portion of the new construction at the home school is going to be on the 32 Hoyt property, about 2,500 square feet of it. We're also intending to build a new service and emergency access road. There will be additional parking spaces built on the very north end of the existing parking lot for staff. And there will be a new stormwater management system put in place. There's currently no stormwater management system for the Holmes campus. We got significant amount of input from neighbors of the Holmes school on the very north side, which is Lake Drive, and Phillips Lane, which is the west side of the school. They were very, very thoughtful in their comments. Our design team and the committee were responsive to those comments. We made a number of really material changes to the preliminary design in order to accommodate some of those concerns. The next thing beyond the 32 Hoyt property is the roof replacement. Roof replacement at all 3 of the schools was not originally part of our mandate. It was mentioned in the ed specs, but it was originally going to be undertaken by and funded by the Board of Education and was intended to renovate roofs in place, partly in conjunction with the installation of solar panels. That work was originally planned for the summer of 2021, but was postponed. Now we have an overlap in the timelines. Our project is going to be getting started in the spring of 2023, and it makes sense to have the new roofs on all 3 of the schools replaced at the same time that the otherwise significant renovation of the 3 schools is taking place. The building committee's more than happy to take that on. We think it makes a lot of sense from an efficiency standpoint, from a scheduling standpoint. We don't think it makes sense to put new roofs on the new construction, don't touch the older part of the schools, put air conditioning equipment on the roofs of the schools, and then decide to replace the roofs on the existing part of the schools, removing the air conditioning equipment, replacing the roof, putting the air conditioning back. Would also require new bidding, new contractors, new design, and that would all try to be done at the same time that the schools are being utilized. Part of the idea of putting the air conditioning in place is to allow the school district to use the schools 12 months a year, so that would obviously be very, very disruptive. As we said, our design contemplates air conditioning the schools. The current design contemplates putting a lot of the air conditioning equipment on the roofs of the schools. Likewise, the planned solar panels are going to need roof space. The third piece of this is that the state OSCGNR when they were talking to us earlier this fall, said, well, gee, there's this roof project that people are contemplating. How does that fit in with what you all are doing? Why don't you just all do the roofs at the same time? It seems to make sense to OSCG&R. So we took that to heart. Historically, just as a matter of history, the Board of Education had gotten an appropriation of about $850,000 to repair the Royal roof, which now won't be spent. The Board of Education had not yet included the Hindley Homes roofs in its capital plan. They would have been in the last year of the 2023-2024 capital plan. One thing to keep in mind is the cost of the purchase and installation of the solar panels on the roofs is not included in what we're asking for this evening. It's not part of our mandate. It's a separate program under a separate contract with the Connecticut Green Bank that Dr. Adley and his team is running with. We're getting the roofs. Our project will get the roofs ready to accept the solar panels, but will not actually purchase or install the solar panels. From a timing standpoint, why are we here now? The date we're really focusing on is December 1st. We need to have certified resolutions ready to go for final submissions to OSCG&R, the state grant board, by December 1st. And we need to have those done in time, that really no later than November 20th, because the way I understand it is once approved by the RTM, there's a 10-day period for any items passed by the RTM to be challenged. So assuming that we get approval from this board, we would then go in front of the Board of Finance on Thursday, the 10th of November, and our goal would be to be in front of the full RTM, the newly constituted RTM post-election, on the 14th of November. We were in front of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee last week, as well as the RTM Education Committee last week, and they were both supportive of these additional appropriations. We could, although we don't recommend it, we could hold this back from the state approval process on December 1st. You get with the state what amounts to one reauthorization, where you can go back and ask for, in effect, a redo on your submissions. We'd prefer not to do that. We'd rather hold that in our pocket for a possible unknown rather than for a known request at this point. So while we're doing this on a compressed time frame, we think that it's the prudent way to do it. How did we come up with the numbers that we're about to go through with you guys? Dave Martin, in particular, worked really, really closely with the cost estimators for both our construction manager, ONGAP, and our design team at KG&D. They prepared cost estimates for both the work at 32 Hoyt and for the roof replacement. The two estimating teams then got together and reconciled their estimates, as we did with the original budget appropriation. We've included amounts for escalations, for design contingencies, for contractor contingencies, and then we slightly rounded up the amounts for easier bonding and to cover bonding fees. Our committee approved the request for appropriation on the 26th of October, and as I said just a minute ago, we have been in front of the RTM Finance and Budget Committee and the Education Committee. So bottom line is we are, and we can go through questions and get into detail if you'd like, but for the Hindley roof, we are requesting an increase of increased appropriation of $1.550 million. For the Holmes roof, $850,000. For the Royal roof, $1.6 million, for a total of $4 million for the roof work. And then for 32 Hoyt, we are asking for $750,000. And that is the sum total of the presentation. Would love to, if you guys have questions, Jill or David or Sarah and I'd be happy to answer those. Any more detail. Things like, if you wanted to see some of the renderings, schematic designs, things like that, it's all on the page, on the HHR page on the town website.
You mentioned that solar panels are not included. When would those be priced, and when would you anticipate addressing that in this process?
Dr. Adams is probably the person with the most information on that. I don't mean to put you on the spot. But
So the initial one would probably be done in Ox Ridge, because the first phase of Ox Ridge is complete. Ideally, we would like to do that in the spring. However, that depends on whether they've actually get the solar panels and all transparency. So there's questions about that. So, but Ox Ridge would probably be the first one.
Okay.
But it'll have to be the first one actually. It's only one done, so it'll be
Right. It'd be the only one with a new roof.
Yeah.
Right.
Chris, I have a question on the 32 Hoyt. So I've been following, and there've been a lot of, there's a lot of discussion. There's, I feel like that it's not fully decided what's going to happen there. Is that correct?
I think the only thing that's still to be decided really is the nature of the stormwater management system. We're really down to 2 design options for that. Again, 32 Hoyt is really the only logical place for the stormwater management to be located. And the 2 options that the committee is considering and working with the design team, I would call an open and a closed system. So the open system would be what amounts to a detention pond in the swale at 32 Hoyt, would be landscaped, would be fenced. The other alternative is a closed system, which is basically a covered underground tank that as it fills up, it then leaches out. We're considering the pros and cons of that. Our goal is to have a recommendation for the design team by no later than the end of this week.
I guess I'm kind of wondering, so the 750 number, that was where you started, correct? And then you did some changes. I just want to make sure that number is solid.
The 750 number, I think, contemplates the higher end of those 2. We think the covered system is more expensive because there's more equipment involved, and you got to dig a big hole and put a tank in and cover it up. So that's a little bit more expensive, but budgeting for that. And if the decision is to go with the open system, there may be some savings. Is that a fair statement, Joe?
I think we feel reasonably comfortable with the 750 will work. The 750 was a cost estimate that was prepared on the initial design that was done by the
Right.
team. The initial design that was done by the team encompassed putting a parking area on the 32 Hoyt Street property, as well as the access road, and having to excavate a greater proportion of 32 Hoyt for the placement of the retention pond, and included a retaining wall. In accommodating the neighbors, we removed that parking area, and the new design for the retaining pond doesn't require the retention wall. So all in all, we think the above ground version will have less excavation, less total costs in terms of the grading and that type of thing. But as Chris was saying, there are some cost differentials between the above ground version and the underground version, both initial costs as well as maintenance.
Yeah, there's pros and cons, right? There's the underground version is essentially invisible, right? The above ground is an open detention pond.
Right. So we scaled back. We took the retaining wall out, taken the parking out, but we're staying with the same number, and that's because this detention system could swing
Correct.
Higher than what you're thinking. Okay.
Correct. And so that creates effectively a built-in contingency.
Right. And then my other question is, on the roofs that are being replaced, what's their life expectancy, and how, are we taking them off too early?
They're 16 to 18 years old. So yes, they're coming off before their 20 years, which is when we would get full reimbursement from the state. But given where they are in their life cycle, at 16 to 18 years old, it doesn't make any sense to put equipment on top of them and then replace them in 2 to 4 years' time.
And they would be getting to their useful, very, very close to their useful life at about the time our project is finished.
Mhm.
So you'd be finishing our
Right.
project, putting new roofs on the new construction, and then the balance of the roofs would be very close to or at their useful lives.
Right. Good
The
point.
actual difference in the reimbursement rate is what exactly? It's, I know but there's like
For every
a,
5 years, there's like a point 1 or
Yeah.
1.0 for every 5 years.
Well, I actually did calculate that, the formula is a little bit convoluted, but the bottom line is if you took the price for the Royal roof, the construction cost component of the Royal roof is estimated $1,377,000. And if you replace it at 18 years instead of 20 years, the difference in reimbursement is $28,000. So there is a little bit of a, incremental cost to it, but, it's the issue of facilitating the project. And I don't remember which one of the roofs is already 18 years. And we haven't got to the staging portion of the project yet, so it's unclear exactly when the roofs will be done.
There's also the logistics of installing all the equipment and then removing all the equipment and hoping that when it's damaged, whether you store it, it's,
There's a cost associated with that,
yes.
too.
Well, the roofs will logically be done toward the latter part of the
Correct.
project, right? Because you have to
Yeah.
get the new construction done, then you'd be putting the roofs across the entire building. So,
Second, some other
yeah.
thereabouts.
Is there anything else lurking out there that's a near-term discussion about potentially missing investments like this?
can you be more clear, John?
You mean in terms of
Well,
other
we have-
expanded scope, things like that?
Expanded scope, or, it strikes me as something that might have been included in the original scope, just in terms of thinking
roofs.
about through all this. And so just kind of curious as to whether anything else has come up.
To be honest, we actually thought about it in the spring, and I think I brought it up at either a meeting of this board, I think it was probably the Board of Finance, and was told that leave that alone. That was already on somebody else's
You've
budget.
been told to leave anything else alone.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Not yet, no.
So, let me just get this correct. So the homeschool for the $850,000, that has already been budgeted into the Board of Education budget?
No, that was Royal.
Royal.
Oh, that was Royal.
Correct.
That's already been put into their budget?
It'll be put into their budget, but technically will be pulled back.
We have an appropriation already.
Okay.
Right,
So
so
we'll
the
have
Board
to-
of Finance will have to
To cancel the
basically claw back the appropriation.
Okay.
In fact, unappropriated.
Unappropriated.
We will
But-
effectively rescind that appropriation so that bonding authorization will be removed.
So net to the town, there's $850 being saved, because that's not being spent on the Royal roof.
Okay.
So in terms of net new appropriation, it's, $3,150,000, not the $4 million.
Mhm.
Okay, that's what I need. Thank you.
Can I come back to John's question? So we did define our scope pretty specifically to those goals, and then, again, updating the building envelope, which has given us some flexibility in defining it. It is a little bit of a slippery slope. We could also update all of the bathrooms and bring them up to a certain standard. We could, redo all of the entrances to a certain standard. We've decided to hold to our scope pretty well, because we were trying to make sure that we're optimizing the renovation that we're doing.
You know,
Well,
we've
I
had-
bring it up for two reasons. One is there anything else lurking out there that we have to spend money on?
Yeah.
But also B, kind of to your point, which is an excellent one to think about all this, is that as expensive as it may be to think about X, and it could be bathroom renovation or anything else, the reality is that if we're going to keep these buildings for a long time, which all this work suggests is the case, then going through and doing a careful look for stuff like that, just because if you're going to do it for a building that we're going to keep for another quarter century, now's the time to do it, not in, say, 10 years when you've got to tear up something. And I would just advise you guys to take a fresh look at that, because in the long run, it saves us money to address that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what else is out there would fall into two basic categories, right? There would be the unknown and discretionary, and then there would be the unknown and, unknown, non-discretionary, and we noted that back in the spring, that part of the way this process has to happen with the state is you do the best calculation you can before you've taken walls down or bid things out or things of that nature. So, are there things that might come up during the process? Maybe, we hope not, but that's why we have contingencies built into the budget. Things like Jill was mentioning, discretionary things like upgrading all the bathrooms, for example. I mean, Architectural Review Board spent a bunch of time suggesting more work that we do on the entrances of the schools to make the old and the new blend better, and to make the new entrances more inviting and dramatic. I mean, that might cost more money. We'll have to we'll have to see how extensive they want that to look. More landscaping, things like that aren't inconsistent with the ed spec mandate, but are also a little bit more discretionary.
Okay.
So.
I wouldn't think that there would be anything of this kind of scope, because the HVAC systems are a huge portion of the budgets, and we're also upgrading the electrical in the buildings to accommodate increased computer and screens and all those other types of things. So those would be the two big cost elements, I would think.
We have identified a couple of things as alternates already, because we are thinking, to your point, John, I appreciate you raising it, that if we get toward the end of the project and there are contingency dollars for hardscape and paving, that areas where we hadn't already planned to do paving, we could just continue and finish a whole area. Cafeteria ceilings and lighting, and also a possible green roof are things we've identified as alternates.
So we put dirt on the new roofs and plant grass.
I saw that, Jill. Was that all three schools, or was that just Hindley?
We have flat roofs at, I think, 2 of the schools.
Yep.
That those would take a green roof, and then the hardscape paving is all of them. Cafeteria ceilings and lighting is, I think, all of them. Yeah.
First, Chris, Jill, David, Alan, Sarah, an immense amount of work. The complexities, when you look at these websites, when you look at these plans, you see the, work product. It's, beyond impressive, and everyone should be thankful for your efforts. Particular question, obviously, if there is a retention pond, if that's the choice, there'll be adequate security around that. It'll be a pond near a elementary school, and you've accounted for substantial fencing or protection of that area, I assume.
Yeah, that goes in sort of the pros and cons list, right? But yes, it would be fenced with locked gates so that the guys who have to maintain it can get in and out. There are detention ponds. I think there's one at the high school.
There's one at Hindley
and there's one at Hindley already.
And when you think about it, at periods of heavy rainfall and flow, it could actually be a pond per se, but a large portion of the year, it will sort of just be a boggy type, low indentation. It's basically there to accommodate all the runoff from.
Yeah, the idea is for it to absorb fully after the rain.
The second point I wanted to make, in fairness and in transparency, we were talking about neighbors. I am in fact a neighbor of that project. I live on 15 Lake. I study these plans. I intend to vote for this, but in full transparency, I am a neighbor, and I wanted my colleagues here in the public to be aware of that. But I'm making my votes on this on the merits as I see them, and not as a particular neighbor of the school. But I wanted to make that clear.
Thanks, Mike.
You do raise an important point. Well, thank you for that comment, but backing up a little bit about safety, that I just wanted to reassure you and members of the public and the Board of Selectmen et al. that we are absolutely taking safety 100% into account. It's something we talk about regularly. And certainly whether we're talking about construction safety or safety of what we put together, that is an underlying, an important point. So thank you for raising it.
Any other comments?
Anything else from you guys?
No.
Thank you.
I echo
Yes,
what
ma'am.
Mike said. I'm watching the meetings, you're working tremendously hard on this, spending a lot of time, and the town really appreciates.
We have a great committee, and these guys are phenomenal, so.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no more questions from the board, Kate, you don't have anything, right?
No.
Nope, okay. So we'll separate these. May I have a motion to approve the request to increase the appropriation and bonding authorization for Holmes Elementary School renovations? Sarah moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. All right, next, may I have a motion to approve the request to approve the appropriation and bonding authorization for Royal Elementary School renovation? Sarah moves, John seconds, all in favor? All right, may I have a motion to approve the request to increase the appropriation and bonding authorization for Hinley Elementary School renovations? Sarah moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Okay, thank you, unanimous. All right. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action to authorize the Board of Education to enter in an agreement with the Connecticut Green Bank. And Kate, do you want to go through this?
This summer, we had presented a resolution to you to have the first selectman authorize the first selectman to enter into the agreement. But you raised some concerns about the language in the contracts. And so our attorney, Wayne Fox, has been working with the Green Bank, so I think it might be better for Wayne to update you on what we've come to, but the decision was in the end that to have the Board of Education enter into the agreement.
Well, good evening. I've been working back and forth with Matt Vernelli, who's counsel for the Board of Education on this. And it was determined that more often what is done is that the Board of Education is the signatory on the contract, and the Board of Selectmen approves what they are doing as the owner of the property. That's what other towns do. That's what we have done, I believe, in the past. And that's what we have done here to modify that resolution so that we are approving and authorizing them to enter into this contract and perform under the contract. But it is not the town that's actually signing the contract, it's the Board of Education.
Any questions on this? Any discussion? No? We do have Dr. Adley here if you have any questions. Okay, seeing none. May I have a motion to approve the request to authorize the Board of Education to enter into an agreement with the Connecticut Green Bank? Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. You want to wait? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request from the Darien Fire Department for a waiver of bidding requirements. And we have Chief Brian Frankfurt to explain this agenda item.
If I could just quickly, this is for rescue jacks. This is funded by the ARPA grant. There is a single source for these rescue jacks. So that's why we're asking for the bid requirements to be waived because there are no other options to buy it from.
Okay. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so the jacks that we're ordering from the company, it's a territorial issue.
Right, come up here, just because of the camera.
So the jacks that we are ordering, it's a territorial issue with certain vendors. So unfortunately, to get the type of jacks that we're looking for, we have to go with a specific vendor. You're not going to get any different savings from one vendor to another. It's all set by the factory.
Okay. All right, I don't have any questions there. Anyone else?
No, makes
No?
sense.
Okay. May I have a motion to approve the request from the Darien Fire Department for a waiver of the bidding requirements? Marcy moves. John seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Thanks, Brian. Okay,
He's not
next
going.
item. What's that?
He's not going to leave, he's got to stay
Yeah.
there, he's next.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request of the Darien Fire Department for an appropriation and a bonding authorization for $2 million for the purchase of a heavy rescue truck. Kate, are you teeing this up, or are we going right to Brian?
Well, I'll tee it up in that the Board of Finance changed the way we purchase trucks, fire trucks. You may recall that we used to save for them on an ongoing basis. We built up a reserve fund, and then we would pay for that out of the reserve fund. They have moved to bonding fire trucks, and we did have a discussion. A lot of times, we weren't sure if they were going to always bond, but they have indicated to us if the cost is over a certain dollar amount, that would be their choice. So that's why we're starting out with the appropriation with you guys. But Brian is here to explain the request, what the truck's for, why the increase in the cost from the original estimates when it was in the replacement plan last year. And
So the original number that was on the replacement schedule was $900,000. Unfortunately, with the cost increases, there's a substantial increase. I did contact one of the manufacturers that I deal with on a regular basis. I am the town mechanic as well, for those of you who don't know me. So I do a lot of purchasing for trucks and building trucks down at the shop. In the past 2 years, there's been a 75% increase in all metals, which is astronomical. So that is a huge hurdle that we are trying to get over. The fire truck itself is actually 1.7 million, and the additional funding was for some tools that I'll explain shortly. We did pretty much settle on one manufacturer for the truck, which was Seagrave. They are on the NJAP, which is a cooperative buying network that we've bought several trucks off before for the town garage. But we were initially looking around 1.2 million when we started this about 18 months ago, and with the increases every month that goes by, we're now at 1.7. The additional 300,000 that I'm requesting, there's a few certain tools that are on the truck, the rescue equipment. So this truck, if we did get it approved, is going to take about 2.5 years to build. The additional rescue equipment that's on our truck now is coming to its shelf life, which is about 5 to 7 years. So I think it's appropriate to add the extrication equipment in on this truck as opposed to taking the equipment we have now, moving it over, and then after the truck's built, it would be about 2 to 4 years. We would be coming back at you for the additional money to replace the equipment. The manufacturer for the rescue equipment is no longer going to support the low-pressure Hearst equipment for extrication equipment. So that's one of the biggest ticket items and the additional equipment that I wanted to add to this. And then I have a few other little things that we wanted to add to this that's normally done with the purchase of a truck.
And maybe, Brian, you can explain to him what the truck actually does.
So this is the heavy rescue for Darien. This is what covers I-95 and all the local roads for motor vehicle accidents. If there's somebody that's trapped in a vehicle, this is the truck that carries all that equipment. Any type of hazmat spills, this truck's got it. There could be rope rescue, cold water rescue. Somebody falls through the ice, that's this truck that goes. We are going with a slightly bigger truck. There's a couple pieces of equipment we want to add to the truck that we currently don't have on the rescue now. That's kind of leaning towards to bring us into the times with the electric vehicles. There's a couple of firefighting pieces of equipment that I want to add to it. as well as there's a small boat that would go in one of the compartments for some of the flooding issues we've had in recent times that I'm sure some of you guys have seen. So,
Okay, so you take delivery in 2.5 years?
about 2.5 years.
Okay. So am I hearing right that this fire truck could put out a EV?
So
fire?
it's going to have some additional equipment on it. There's something called a EV fire blanket.
Mhm.
That's one of the pieces that I want to put on this truck. And then there's additional heavy struts which are used to stabilize tractor trailers in a large motor vehicle accident. So there's some additional equipment that we don't have currently that we're adding to this.
Right.
This, if you don't mind me.
This is Larry's, my assistant chief.
Yeah, Larry Castellano, first assistant chief. Sorry. This is one of the primary pieces of apparatus that would respond to any sort of building construction incident or building collapse type incident. So, the discussions that you're having about building new schools, you're seeing new developments all across town. This is one of the primary things that would be bringing equipment to any sort of scene that would help in that sort of incident as well. So there's a variety of uses for this. It's sort of bringing all of the tools to the scene in a much more efficient manner than what we have today.
Couple questions, just to your point, but we won't, by the time we get this in 2 years, those construction projects will be
Sure.
completed.
Sure.
Okay. So the existing physical plant that we have, this is going to be a larger truck, it's going to be a heavier truck. Wherever it's housed, do we have an appropriate size, an appropriate
Yes. So it will.
stabilized environment for this?
So
piece of equipment?
this will fit in the bay that the current rescue's already in. There's
Okay.
nothing that has to be done to change any of that. We don't need an addition or anything like that to house the truck. It's not significantly bigger than what we got now. It's just a little bit bigger. We're looking to create an additional compartment on each side.
Okay. And if you could just, for people who may be watching at home, and because it's a significant amount of money, if you could just give an idea of the usage and when, people in Darien would see, historically, this vehicle rolling out and doing what?
So any type of motor vehicle accident that occurs in our district or I-95, we do get quite a few calls on 95. So this is the primary piece of equipment for extricating somebody out of a vehicle. Any type of hazmat spill that could happen. We've had incidents all over town where we need to apply certain types of equipment out, whether it be the diapers, speedy dry, booms, anything like that, this will be on that truck. Any type of rescue, it could be a confined space rescue that when the sewer department's working with a contractor and they have somebody in the hole, this truck will have the equipment on it to go out and be able to rescue that individual if there was an issue with him in a confined space.
Yeah, each truck, when the alarm bells go off, there's a very specific choreography of how we respond, right? So we have engines, we have a ladder, and then we have heavy rescue, right? We have a tanker truck as well that brings additional water to a fire. But that choreography is dictated by what the dispatch is, right? And so the heavy rescue will roll to a lot of the incidents that Chief Ransford is explaining. And you bring up a very good point about, a lot of the projects may be completed, but I'm sure there will be new projects coming online thereafter, right? There's always a changing nature in what we see, right? The rescue that we have today was built in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. And, there's an antiquated nature of some of these things that we planned for in 2000, 2002 to get that built in 2004. As you might imagine, with new developments, with technological changes, the natures of emergencies are changing. And so what we're trying to do is be able to respond to those in a very efficient manner and what we see on the horizon. Every time we think we've been doing this a long time, every time we think we've seen something, something new happens. And so we're trying to make sure that we're building a truck that is going to meet anything that we could foresee and maybe not even foresee, but be able to mitigate in a very quick nature. And so this truck, the way that it's been designed and the planning that has gone into it, is sort of bring all of the tools to bear at a very quick and efficient manner as soon as the alarm bells go off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a couple of questions. This is an astronomical amount of money. I mean, I remember when we were debating or talking about ladder trucks on the Board of Finance, and I think that was early in my tenure, and the truck came up, and it was, what, $1.1 million? And I thought it was going to have to be defibrillated. Maybe someone in the fire department had one of those units with them, and I know this has tools on it. Now we're talking about twice as much money to buy a single truck. And I'm just kind of wondering, in the scheme of all this, I always have this kind of regular question with these discussions as to whether we've had a fresh look at our fire equipment list, what's on that list, longevity of these vehicles, the right balance among all the departments, kind of all that stuff. And then second, if I think about a truck like this, I do have the fiery crash on 95 or the complex extraction or rescue that has to be done. I'm just wondering whether, for our town, the frequency with which this truck is going to be used on stuff like that, and whether at some point you say the complexity of that rescue is so much so that it's better for the town to depend on Norwalk or Stamford, which are much bigger and more substantive departments, than we have a greater variety of specialized equipment and are mere minutes away in terms of distance. And whether we've kind of thought about that. I see this discussion about this piece of equipment, and I worry kind of what's coming down the pike, that we're now spending twice as much money on fire trucks and sort of equipment, or at least there's the prospect of that. And I just wonder, also hearing your description of what's going to be on the truck, whether we're getting, some mission creep in there as well, and becoming so capable on some of these things that we're maybe losing the focus on making some trade-offs in terms of the equipment that we're buying. So.
Can I, if I could address some of that, John? We had commissioned an emergency services study, which I do have the draft report. I received it on Thursday. Not ready to share the whole report yet, but it does that report contemplated this, and it does endorse the need for this truck. And I would remind you that these trucks will last 20 years. So $2 million is a lot of money, but remember, it's a 20-year vehicle. And then I don't really think it's mission creep, what they're doing. I may be biased.
What's that necklace say on there? Sorry, just checking.
This is actually, rescue is what my husband does.
We know.
It belongs with the fire departments. We don't have another entity in town that is capable of the type of specialized rescue work that they do. I mean, our police do wonderful work, but where they might, I don't think we have a scuba team at the moment, but things like a confined space rescue, you're not going to want to wait for Norwalk or Stamford to get here. If we have any kind of a building collapse, that's not something that the police will have the equipment to be able to go in and do. It's the fire department is the appropriate place for it.
Okay. And is this truck kind of required for all the new construction that we have? Is maybe that an issue that you need?
I'm sorry, say that again?
All the new construction we have in town, is this kind of truck necessary maybe from an insurance standpoint, or?
I'd say not for all the new construction. What I think you're going to be more concerned about with the new construction might be the ladders and pumpers. But this is a lot about the highway and the motor vehicles, the responsibility that the department has for 95. But they do the other tasks as well.
And then one other question: should we be reading through this study before we make a decision like this?
The study supports this.
This study supports.
I don't know if I haven't read it.
Trust me.
spoiler.
I need to go over some of the recommendations with them, and I'd like to see some revisions in the study, then I will be giving it to the Board of Selectmen.
You know, to John's point, when I looked through this, I had the same, sense of, sticker shock and concern. But then what I thought of, if not for the 75% metal increase at a lower price, for me, it would have been even just a no-brainer. So then I thought to myself, well, if it makes us safer and we have that need, how could I say no to it because of other factors that have jumped the price? So I came back to, do we need it? It seems like we do. I think it's an oppressive price. I don't know that we do better by waiting to see if metal prices go down, if it's a 2-year lead out, and this machine we have now is hemorrhaging money. But I hate it, but I feel like it's the responsible thing to do. But I share your shock and concern over the expense.
Bring that up just because it sounds like this is a custom-built truck, right? And so
So pretty much anytime you get into a rescue, they're all custom-built. Ladders, there are cut and dry, like you can just get an assembly line piece of equipment, same thing with pumpers, but rescues tend to be built for the communities that they serve.
Okay. And would this be a fixed price contract? In other words, we're not going to have another appropriation to cover additional inflation, so that's...
No, this covers everything as long as I can sign contract by next month.
The important point as well, because we share your concern as well, the longevity, to your point about the longevity of the truck and the care with which we put into this truck. One of the gentlemen here, our chief engineer, Sean McAleer, and Brian being the town mechanic, is we're servicing the truck, and we're taking care of it and making sure that it's getting its useful lifespan and beyond. That the current Rescue 44 is basically at that useful lifespan, and we'll probably exceed it by the time we get this. So there's also a degree of maintenance that will go into this truck to make sure that it exceeds that lifespan. And we're doing that maintenance on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. So we share your concern wholeheartedly, but it's sort of the nature of where these things are from a procurement standpoint in this day and age.
Chief, I have a question. So what do you do with the engine, that the rescue truck you have now? Do you scrap it? Do you...
No. That's also a dilemma right now. Unfortunately, most manufacturers don't take trade-ins, so this is something that we would have to try to put up for sale. There will be somebody who will definitely purchase this at some point. I just don't know for how much, because now we're talking 2.5 years, and let's just say there's some issues. It could be up to 3 years before we even see this truck, so that's something I'd have to put out to some of the dealers to see what they can do about selling this truck.
Is it a $2 million collector item?
Depending on who wants it, it's possible.
Okay, the metal in this truck is inflated as well, so don't forget that.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking if you want to scrap it. I mean, if nothing else. But, so what happens with the proceeds from that truck?
It comes back to the town.
Okay. Okay. And you don't have any estimate on that now?
I really don't.
Okay.
That's one of those things that when we get closer to the time, we'll put it out there to the dealers to see who has interest in it and what kind of money we can get for it.
Okay. But that'll help offset it.
Yeah, so I just want to reiterate that the truck that we're looking at is 1.7. The additional equipment is stuff that we would be going after either way, whether I was purchasing the truck or not, because of the lifespan on that rescue equipment.
On this 919 number, that did not include any additional equipment. This 909,200.
Oh, no.
That was just for,
No, that
okay.
did not include,
Okay, so that's versus the 1.7.
yeah, so
Okay.
the comparable numbers are gonna be 1.7 to the 900, and then the
Right.
additional equipment is only because I felt that it was, if, instead of taking the equipment we have now and having to take it off and remount it, and you're only gonna get a couple years on it before I come back up here and or put it through a capital request, I just thought it was appropriate to do it now instead of trying to mount equipment to the truck, take it off, and then having to drill more holes to mount the new equipment. So I felt that was appropriate to do now.
Okay. Any additional questions? No? Okay.
Yeah, in circumstances now where you don't have the resources or the assets to make a life save, will you call in Stanford or Norwalk? And are they responsive if you need them to assist you?
So, yeah, we have a mutual aid agreement with other departments.
Okay.
So, yes, our resources go both ways. Since I've been involved, we have not had to call in the additional resources from them. We have provided assistance to Norwalk several times.
Do either one of these towns, surrounding towns, have a similar apparatus like this now?
So Norwalk currently has something similar to what we have. Sean, I would say that's pretty comparable to what we have now, correct?
Yeah, similar truck.
So Norwalk potentially is looking at a similar piece of equipment to what we're purchasing now.
What is the frequency of how often you use this? Like, can you give me a, is
Very,
it
very often.
very often?
Yeah, so,
Sunday morning, we had, what, 4 MVAs?
yeah. Hey, so the nature of what we do, obviously, is you have no idea when they're gonna come in. And
Right.
so, one day there may be nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the rarity. Other days, there may be 4, 14, Lord only knows. And so, just, I would say we put our boots and our hats on every day.
For instance, Sunday morning, we had 4 separate motor vehicle accidents within an hour of each other on 95.
95.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, the nature of these things, as traffic increases, it's tractor trailers, it's EVs, it's everything in between. We don't know what we're getting into, even with the dispatch.
So anything from exit 10 to exit 14, you guys are covering in a call?
Yeah, the 13 off.
Yeah.
13.
Yeah, just a little bit past that, but yeah.
A lot of times we'll end up interacting with Norwalk
Okay.
because the dispatch will be between 13 and 14, and you don't know, the caller doesn't know where they are relative to the town line. So we'll end up interacting a fair amount with Norwalk in that regard, and then Stanford if it's on the south side.
Now, if there's a similar motor vehicle accident on the Merritt Parkway, how do you access that?
That's in our
That's New
town.
Canaan.
That's not your town? Okay. Okay.
Not to say there isn't a potential that we
Right.
could ever go
I
up
mean, I'm
there.
sure you're gonna need it.
If,
I think more likely the Heights would support New Canaan up there, right?
it depends. I mean, straight shot up Mansfield or Hoyt.
Yeah, we've provided mutual.
Chief usually gets there first. Just saying.
Yeah, I've been with the department now, going on 12 years. We've provided mutual aid to New Canaan, we've provided mutual aid to Norwalk, we've provided mutual aid to Stanford, and at this point, we've been able to mitigate without having to call in those resources to our town.
I just want to say, I think we actually have some incredibly various topography. Between the water, you might be able to put a boat on it. Is that what you said?
So,
I mean, that's incredible. Between a boat, you've got train tracks, you've got 95, you've got development, you've got houses. There's a lot. in
that
this
is
town.
actually one thing I forgot to mention, the train issue.
Yeah.
There'd be additional equipment on here to actually push a rail car off a little bit if somebody were to come pin between the train and the platform. So there'd be some additional equipment on that as well. Be able to provide that, and then the boat was kind of the thing that I really wanted, because I don't know about if you guys remember the town garage with the flooding over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I remember very well.
Means you need a boat even more.
Any other questions for the chief?
No, thank you.
No? Okay, thanks, Brian. All right, may I have a motion to approve the request from the Darien Fire Department for an appropriation and a bonding authorization for $2 million for the purchase of a heavy rescue truck? Mike moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Unanimous. Sarah, did you second that?
John or I think it was the same.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request to increase the maximum tax abatement for the emergency service workers. And Kate's going to explain this.
Right, so we, a number of years ago, the town passed an ordinance providing a tax abatement to our volunteer emergency service workers. So that's the 3 fire departments and Post 53. And we did the maximum, which I think at the time under the state law was $1,000. So basically, they can qualify for $250 for every year of service up to 4 years of service. They have standards that they have to meet in terms of the number of hours of service that they provide, and there are parameters around what kind of service it can be. But if they qualify, if they do the required amount of hours for all 4 years, they get the maximum of $1,000. That's a reduction in their taxes. They have asked that the board consider increasing that that amount to $2,000. So I'm pulling up my memo because I don't have the written packet here. Jen Ternesky did the math and looked at our current, what we give currently and how much we give and what the increase would be if we grant this. So I laid it out in the memo for you.
It's $65,750 extra.
So it does have to go to the Board of Finance and the RTM for final approval. You know, do I think that increasing the dollar amount is going to, you know, have people beating down our doors? Probably not, but I think it's a good recognition of the effort that these people put in on a purely volunteer basis. You know, getting up in the middle of the night in February to go put a fire out in somebody else's home. I don't think it's a big ask. It's not an actual appropriation, it's a reduction in the revenue. So, I don't know. I do think it's time for us to consider this. So if you approve it, it would go on to the RTM for their consideration.
Okay, can you explain, we have Norwalk that participates in Stanford. Can you explain?
So, back maybe about 10 years ago, the request was made to consider a reciprocal agreement with the city of Norwalk, where if a Norwalk resident volunteers in Darien, we would give them, we agree to pay Norwalk the value of the abatement, and if a Darien resident volunteers at a volunteer firehouse in Norwalk, and they do have them, they would give the abatement to the Darien resident, and they would pay us the value of the abatement. So there are 26 Norwalk residents who volunteer. We have not been asked to put in a reciprocal agreement with the city of Stamford. If you know, if that request came in, that would be something to consider, and it would have to be negotiated with the city of Stamford.
Okay. And this includes, this is fire and post?
It includes the post.
Right, okay. Any other questions for Kate?
Sure. What is Norwalk reciprocating back to Darien residents?
I don't believe we have any Darien residents volunteering in Norwalk.
Okay.
Any sense of what other towns are doing on this? Is there a general view that this needs to be increased? Are we a first
You know,
mover?
increasing the dollar amount, no, I don't know what other towns are doing. You know, there are a variety of things that towns do for volunteer fire departments. Some have a form of pension, some have stipends per call. There's a number of different things that towns do.
So Kate, it's a jump of 100%. When was the last time it was increased?
It never has been.
And when was it implemented?
I'd have to go back, but I believe back in the early 2000s.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I would support this. If there are no other questions, may I have a motion to approve the, a motion, right, Kate?
Yeah.
Yeah, a motion to increase the maximum tax abatement for the emergency service workers and to recommend approval of the same to the RTM. May I have a motion? Mike moves, Sarah seconds. All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. Okay. Do we have police?
Yep.
Oh, okay, so next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on a request from the police department for a waiver of the bidding requirements. And Kate actually is gonna
Right, I told the chief he could have the night off. So one of our ARPA projects is a drone for the police department. They would be the primary department responsible for it, but it would be allowed to be able to be used by other departments. In doing the research, the company that does our body cameras and the in-car cameras and the building camera system, they also have drones. There's a tremendous advantage to us if we can buy their drone because of the memory system, that we wouldn't have to have different equipment. The drone could save to the same system that everything else does. So they have asked us for a waiver because there's only one place to buy that specific drone from. And obviously we could bid out and look at different types of drone, but there are specific advantages to having this, the drone that ties into all of our evidence systems.
Okay, any questions? Mike, good, you're good? Okay. If there are no further questions, may I have a motion to approve the request from the police department for a waiver of bidding requirements? John moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss the proposed land acquisition policy. So Kate, you want to hit this?
So this was something I had thought about previously. And then when we were going through the process of acquiring 27 Crimmins, doing the funding process, it was, the issue was raised by the Board of Finance. And they wanted to know, did we have a policy about purchasing land? What kind of land? Would we purchase in anything to do with it? And we obviously did not at the time. So felt it was time to move on it and develop a policy. So I looked at a bunch of different sources, including some state policies about what the state looks at when they're considering acquiring land. So the way I wrote it, and it's up to you to decide if that's the way you want to go, but the way I developed it was to bring up the issues that I felt should be considered, not as, you know, a definitive buy this type of land, don't buy that type of land, but if land is available, what should you be thinking about when making the decision whether or not we should purchase it? So I did send around today, the first selectman has made some changes, some formatting changes and language changes. I sent around that, and John also had some suggested edits, but tonight we just want to hear what what changes you all want to make in this.
I mean, I think it's good to have a policy. I think this checks all the boxes, and I apologize, I wasn't able to get on to make any edits, but the only one I would have is in the, I guess it's really a second paragraph that says opportunities for the town of Darien to acquire land may be presented to the Board of Selectmen. I think that should probably be a shall, because I don't think it's discretionary whether or not it comes before us. I think that's a shall, not a, I mean, I think ultimately we have to,
What paragraph are you?
it's a, I guess it's the second one.
Oh,
So now
okay,
it's
at the very top.
opportunities for the
top.
town of Darien to acquire land. Maybe, I think it should be shall be, because, I mean,
Yeah, that makes
doesn't have
sense.
to be,
I was thinking more not that, we have an opportunity. I was thinking more like the opportunity may come up. That's where I was coming,
Yeah, it's always going to be clear that the Board of Selectmen is the first stop on any of these types of.
Yeah, it wasn't like if one comes up, it might be presented, it's just that an opportunity might come up. So we could change it, when opportunities arise, they shall be presented, or,
Yeah, I like that.
okay.
John, thanks for your edits.
Yeah. No, I read through it, and other than a few edits, I think this does cover all the bases without kind of getting into the acquisition policy, like the decision to go out and buy property. That really is something that this board discusses. But once a decision's been made to do that, either someone wants to bring it to the board or we're going to sit down and think about it, this covers all the stuff you'd want to consider as part of that process, so I like it.
My question is, if we have this policy in place, would there be properties that we would not have bought if this property had been in place previously?
No, I know.
Is this contrary to anything we've bought over the past few years? Does this go against properties that would be needing to be held by the FEMA, like, so just 27 agreements?
I don't think it would have stopped us from buying any, but it might have made us consider whether the town should, should the town pay the 25% when, if there is a FEMA-related, we are not obligated by FEMA to pay that 25%. That's an option, that's our choice. So, and that's one of the things actually that we put in there that, we should consider that. But I don't think it would have stopped us.
But it would have addressed that, which is, I think, what kickstarted this.
And the point is, one of the points of this is to make sure you ask all the questions that you should be asking before buying a piece of land.
Right.
But I don't think you would have said no.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's sufficiently broad that it wouldn't affect any of the prior decisions. I mean, legally, it wouldn't matter anyway, because
Yeah,
it's prospective, not retrospective. But what I like is that, people can see what the outlines of whoever sitting in these seats are going to be thinking about. And the other town bodies can look at it and say, all right, well, the selectmen have a little bit of a blueprint. I mean, facts are always going to change. But you can apply this overview to those facts and that you consider them. So I think it's a nice job that you did.
Does this affect any properties that have been applied for FEMA? Really?
We currently have one that I believe is in the works to apply, but it hasn't gotten to the stage where FEMA has approved it. And those owners have been informed that to not expect the town to pick up the 25%. But it would still have to come before you because we would still be acquiring it.
Right. But in the past, historically, we have done that, paid that 25%.
Yes.
Okay, secondly, can we go over, so under risks,
Mm-hmm.
under A, there's 1 and 2, the flood hazard zone, floodway, and then floodplain. If we could do a job about explaining to everyone else the differences between the two and what are the risks based on houses with floodplain, because we do talk about it previously when we go into item number 2 under location. We talk about would be desirable as open space or within the floodplain. So are we saying it's a risk that it's in a floodplain, or are we saying that it's a risk if it's in a flood hazard zone, which I would agree with, but are we saying, I just think by having floodplain in there, is that considered a risk, and then should we change the language of the first piece?
I think it's maybe more redundant, and I would say the floodway, Jeremy Ginsburg added.
Okay.
This afternoon, or this morning. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we wanted to have something in there that, those should be given serious consideration to eliminate the risk, because there is a risk to a property that's if the property is in the floodway,
Right.
there's a risk not just to the people living there, but to, to their neighbors, to the waterway, whatever gets into the waterway going downtown, to the people who have to go in and rescue the people from the home. So priority should be given to where we can eliminate risks.
Right.
We can't always,
But should we remove the words floodplain from the risks piece if we don't consider the floodplain to be a risk?
I think
Just because it's listed above as if it's, would be desirable as open space, if it's within the
Well-
floodplain. I just don't know, is it redundant in respect that it
just-
says yes in one and no in another? I'm just trying to understand. Or am I overthinking this?
You're overthinking it, but I thought the same thing, Sarah.
Okay.
I thought the same thing, but I think one is regarding location, that's the thought, and the other is the risk category. So, I look at it as redundant more than anything. Marcy, any questions? So, I think, should we vote on it, or?
No,
Well,
it
you
was
have
not on the
to
agenda
adjust,
for
yeah.
action,
Okay.
so I
Okay.
will clean it up with the different changes and recirculate it, and you can, we'll schedule the vote for the 21st.
Okay. But if people have changes between now and then, we will discuss them.
We should discuss them on the 21st.
And then, okay. Okay, great. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and adopt the 2023 meeting schedule. And Kate put this together. Thank you, Kate.
It's always a fun time for me to.
Can I ask about the budget workshop meeting schedule?
Mhm.
It seems pretty heavily loaded. Having sat through, it seems like on 3 nights we're going over the entire budget, and I feel like we've spread that out a little bit more in previous weeks.
Actually, no, this is
No?
the same,
Format.
just the format, just the dates have changed.
Okay.
Remember that first night that has an awful lot, those are generally pretty
Smaller
small
budget. No,
budgets.
yeah.
The big night is that January 31st, where
Right.
we have a number of the really big budgets. I have no objection if you want to spread it out. But this was just keeping with the basic schedule. The only change, what I did was, in response to your comments from last year, we would still prepare the budget at the same time, but make it available to you then,
Yes, please.
a week before you actually start working on it. No night devoted to just me standing up there and talking about the budget.
Sounds good.
So we're dropping that one meeting.
I think that makes sense.
And then, Kate, you have another meeting, you have no time there. Is that?
I have another meeting.
On Wednesday, February 8th, is that just like a safety meeting in case we need it?
Well, the last few years, we haven't needed it.
Right.
And the no time was just an error. It would, it would be a 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Um,
But that's kind of, I
Backup.
think I don't think we needed
We
it
didn't need
last
it
year.
last year.
Right, yeah, okay.
Top of your regular meeting calendar, it says 2022.
Okay, fix that.
Yeah, I just got thrown on that.
But the general dates were September, September was a little bit difficult with Labor Day and Rosh Hashanah, and the RTM.
It is
So,
preferable to not have them on the same night.
so if you see, the first meeting in September is a Tuesday night. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
And I tried not to have back-to-back, but sometimes it was a little bit unavoidable.
Any other thoughts?
I'm
Team?
okay with this.
You okay? Mike? You good?
Good.
Marcy?
Yep.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt the proposed 2023 meeting schedule? Marcy? Marcy moves. John seconds. All in favor? Unanimous. Terrific. Okay. Excellent. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action on proposed settlement of litigation. And I'm going to have Wayne kick this off.
Good evening again. This is litigation or dispute, for lack of a better term, that goes back to the fall of 2021. At that time, Eversource proposed tree trimming and tree removal in a publicly owned right-of-way adjacent to Raymond Street. The request initially was to apply 100 trees. The tree warden reviewed that application as his obligation and granted the approval for the removal of 21 of those trees. In accordance with the applicable statutes, Eversource filed an appeal with the Public Utilities Commission. In conjunction with that same statute, there is an allowance for what they call a kind of mediation. Eversource applied for that mediation, and since that time there have been multiple meetings to try to resolve the issues. As a result of the mediation, a proposal which is before you this evening provides that Eversource will be allowed to remove a total of 62 trees, in return for which there will be approximately 400 plants put in place along that property line. Of those plants, 140 will be trees which will grow to 8 feet or more, and in some cases 25 feet. In addition to that, there's an agreement with respect to caring for those trees and the guarantee for the life of those trees for some 18 months, which is longer than what is normally allowed for, which is only 12 months. There was a further agreement with respect to when the existing trees would be removed and when the new plants would be installed, so that there will not be too large a gap. There is also a provision which provides for enforcement should that become necessary. It is my opinion that this is a fair and good resolution of the dispute. I would recommend it for approval by this board. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
No, I just want to clarify that as Attorney Fox mentioned, we started off with 100 trees that were being looked at. The tree warden agreed that 21 of them that were diseased or dead should be removed, and they were. Eversource removed 7 from the list on their own, which left 72 trees. And the town fought very hard, and there will be 10 trees that are on the property, on that right-of-way now, that will remain, okay? So the initial expectation was all trees down. That was Eversource's position, and they were very firm on that. So that was a positive outcome in our opinion. There will be 62 trees taken down in total, and 140 trees will be planted. 8 of those will be a limber pine at the beginning of the road. Those are the ones that will grow up to 25 feet. There will be 60 arborvitae, that will be planted up along the railroad tracks to give some screening up there. There will be 72 juniper trees also interspersed up in there, and 276 other pollinator plants. as Attorney Fox said, very important to have a maintenance plan on this. Eversource will be responsible for watering these plantings, all of these plantings, for 18 months. 1 year from the time the plants are planted, the trees and plants are planted, our team and Eversource will go out and inspect. Any plants that didn't make it will be replaced. There will be a second look in 6 months later. Any plants that haven't made it during that period of time will be replaced. So an 18-month maintenance schedule is unprecedented, and a watering management schedule is unprecedented from Eversource. So those were two things that we fought very hard for. We will also be in charge of traffic control for 1 day, as opposed to all of the time that Eversource initially was suggesting. No trees will be taken down before March 1st of 2023, and the plantings will be in the ground by June 1st, unless there is a weather event like a snowstorm. So we will be monitoring the weather. If there is a weather event, all plants will be in the ground by July 1st. So what we didn't want to do is have clear cutting taking place there, except for the 10 trees, and then have an empty space for an unforeseeable length of time. So we've put a collar on that, okay? And we will be issuing a joint statement with Eversource regarding this. Okay? All right. Wayne, do you have anything else to add?
I do not.
Okay. Team, do we have any questions?
I think the only thing would be, is it possible to list some of this information on our website? Is there a way for us to have this so that the neighbors can understand the replanting plan and understand and
Yeah,
see it better?
sure.
Because
Yeah, you know what?
it's very difficult to maybe visualize what you're saying if you're living nearby and trying to understand where those things are.
Right. And you know what? I have the planting plan in my office. Kate, you want to go get it?
Yeah.
We will bring it so you can see it right now, because I think that will help you. And we will post it on the website for people. So again, the dates to remember: March 1st. That is, no trees will be taken down before then, and the planting plan will be implemented by July 1st at the latest of next year.
June.
June 1st, July 1st if there is a weather event. Okay?
And I think one of the things that's important to talk about is if we did not approve this, what happens?
So Wayne, do you want to cover, Wayne, that if the town didn't come
We did
to a
not pass it.
conclusion with the mediator, what the
Certainly.
next step would be?
This is an appeal which was taken under the statutes to PURA. They then had the mediation process, which we went through. If in fact that had failed, then it would go back to PURA, scheduled for an argument before PURA, and the case presented to them for a decision by that entity. It will be litigated to a conclusion.
Okay. Okay. Marcy, any questions?
No.
Okay. So the board has discussed this at multiple meetings and executive sessions, so a lot of our questions are answered. I want to stress that I really appreciate the patience of the residents throughout this. This has been a very long process, and I appreciate the diligence and the perseverance from the town side, and that includes former First Selectman Jamie Stevenson. Want to give appreciation to Attorney Fox and to our Director of Public Works, Ed Gentile, who've worked very, very hard to come to this resolution.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions? No? Okay, so may I have a motion to approve the proposed settlement of litigation with Eversource? Marcy moves, John seconds, all in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. And if, we're gonna be done pretty quick here, and then I will take this around and show you. Next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action to approve the proposed settlements of tax appeals. Kate's going to cover this.
So you discussed this, Wayne updated you on this in executive session. We have 3 tax appeals for you tonight, settling lawsuits. And we recommend that you approve them all.
Any discussion? Again, something that we discussed also in executive session. So may I have a motion to approve the settlement of the case of Aldo Criscuolo versus Town of Darien to amend the fair market value of the property from $3,427,600 to $3,150,000, effective applicable to the grand lists of October 1st, 2019, in accordance with a stipulation for judgment. Mike moves, Sarah seconds. All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay, next item is, may I have a motion to approve the settlement of the case of Joseph Criscuolo versus Town of Darien to amend the fair market value of the property from $1,544,700 to $1,350,000, effective applicable to the grand list of October 1st, 2019, in accordance with the stipulation for judgment. Marcy? Marcy moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? That's unanimous. Next item is, may I have a motion to approve the settlement of the case of the United States Postal Service versus Town of Darien to amend the fair market value of the property from $3,281,600 to $3,100,000, even, effective applicable to the grand lists of October 1st, 2018, in accordance with a stipulation for judgment. Marcy moves. John seconds. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to discuss and take action to accept a gift of $22,000 from Federal Realty for the McGuan Playground project and a request for an appropriation of $22,000. So I'm going to cover this. The town appropriated $175,000 of ARPA funds for a replacement of the playground at McGuan. To save money, the Parks and Rec Department could have dismantled and removed the current playground structure, but that would have required work to be done right now in November. That's when they have the time to do it. So this would have resulted in no playground over at McGuan for 7 months. The new one is expected to be installed late May or early June. And this playground is handicapped accessible, so that would have been a hardship for many of the visitors there. The cost to compensate the vendor, Creative Recreation, for the task of removing the current playground in addition to installing the new playground is $22,000. As most of you know, Federal Realty is developing the Darien Commons in Norotan Heights. And I reached out to Patrick McMahon of Federal Realty for financial assistance. And on behalf of Federal Realty, he graciously and expeditiously offered to gift the $22,000 for this project. So I'd like to thank Federal Realty for this generous gift for our residents, especially our smaller, younger friends, and those that benefit from a handicap-accessible playground. Any questions, discussion?
Just a really quick question. I don't know if it's language, but if we're accepting a gift of $22,000, why are we then appropriating? It's just a pass-through language? Is
Well,
that what
because
you
it's
mean?
cash,
Right.
it's, you know,
So we're taking it and then spending it towards that.
Right, so in order
Okay.
to spend it, we have to have an appropriation.
I didn't know if it was like a $44,000, we need to take that
Nope.
gift in and then also spend. Okay, thank you.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great.
Again, big thanks to Federal Realty. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Really.
Really, you know, I know that the residents are very excited about the project over there, and to not have this playground right down the street, I don't think that would have been good. So I appreciate it. So, okay, may I have a motion to accept the gift of $22,000 from Federal Realty for the McGuan Playground Project and a request of an appropriation of $22,000. Marcy moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes of the October 18th, 2022 regular meeting. Do I have any additions, subtractions, changes?
Looks good.
Okay. Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve? John moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Thank you, Attorney Fox. May I have a motion to review and approve the minutes of, next is review and approve the minutes of the October 24th special meeting. Any additions, corrections?
Looks good to me.
Okay, the only thing I would do is take out the question mark at the end of the appointments, because we did make those. So if there are no other corrections, with that, I guess, deletion of the question marks, may I have a motion to approve as presented? Sarah moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Terrific. Okay. That's it. That was a duplicate, right? Yes, okay. Next item on the agenda is agenda review. Are there any topics that board members would like to see on a future agenda?
Just so you know, we still have the flag policy hanging out there, so.
Yep. Ah, see what you did there.
Yeah.
Anything else? No? Okay. And may I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Sarah moves, Mike seconds, all in favor, unanimous. Okay, thank you, 79.